Good morning. Hi. Wow, you like that entertainment. Goodness. I'm Gabriel Stricker, Director of Global Communications and Public Affairs at Google. I just have a couple of quick housekeeping items to go through before we begin. First, is everyone able to access the Wi-Fi in here? I'm getting some yes and no. So the networks are Search On 1 through Search On 5. So not the SF MoMA network, and the password is I search on Goog. The letter I search on Goog is the password. So Search On 1 through Search On 5, I search on Goog is the password. For those of you who are not here, who are viewing this via our streaming, we're going to have a Q&A at the end of the presentation, and you guys can submit questions for us via the email alias search2010@google.com. So that's search2010@google.com. And then for those of you who are here, we're going to have some demos at the end of today's presentation as well. So just stick around, and you guys will be able to walk through a lot of what we're going to be announcing today. So with that, I just wanted to give you a quick sort of update on why it is that we're here. So periodically we do these State of the Unions really for two reasons. First is we hear from a lot of you that with the kind of breakneck pace of innovation that we go through at Google, it's nice for us to kind of let you catch your breath and give you a sense of where we are and where we're going. And so we'll do some of that. And then secondly, we hear that it's helpful from time to time to kind of take a look under the hood and get a sense of the anatomy of what we do and why and how. And so you'll certainly hear a lot about that as well. So here we are at the SF MoMA. And you know what we do at Google and in search in particular is really one part art and one part science. We're here at the SF MoMA today in recognition of the art part of that equation. The science, well, you're going to hear from our search rocket scientists in a second who will hold your hand through the latest and greatest of what we're up to. But before we go there, I just wanted to flag one thing, and some of you may have heard some of the remarks from Eric Schmidt, Google's CEO, yesterday in Berlin. And there he said, never underestimate the importance of fast. Today we're going to be talking a lot about speed and the importance of fast. And in recognition of that and in an attempt to kind of keep things moving on time, I'm going to hand it over to our Vice President of Search Products and User Experience, Marissa Meyer. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Good morning and welcome, and thanks to all of you for coming to our search event this morning. Obviously, we have a really big announcement. But before we get to the announcement, I thought I would offer some insight into just how far search has already come in 2010. Starting with an exciting stat. In the past few months, we've crossed the 1 billion users on Google's site each week mark. We're really excited about this. We couldn't have done this without our users, and we're profoundly grateful to them. And we want to really renew our commitment to constantly improving our quality and constantly improving our user experience. This statistic makes Google Search one of the most used services, not only internet services, but services all over the world. And we're really excited and honored to have achieved this milestone. And we couldn't have done it without our users. We also couldn't have done it without a constant innovation and a constant sense of improvement. Most of you know that we actually roll out hundreds of changes each year. In 2009, for example, we rolled out more than 500 UI and ranking changes to Google Search. Already in 2010, we've already rolled out more than 500 changes to our ranking and to our UI. And so this stands to be the best year ever for Google Search. We've already had hundreds of improvements in 2010. And I thought I would highlight just a few of them. First up, we have caffeine, our new indexing system, which makes our index 50% fresher. This ultimately means that our users get much more up-to-date and timely results, and we can find the best information regardless of where it is and when it was written. It really helps our index to be fast. We also rolled out real-time at the tail end of 2009, but that hasn't stopped us in 2010 from continuing to build advances. We've been working on our triggering, so when real-time shows up in our search results, it's incredibly relevant. We've also rolled out a whole slew of features, including timeline views and conversation views. We're really excited about how to show real-time information, tweets and updates in the context of search to really help our users understand what's going on. We've also been making improvements to our spell corrections. That may seem funny because we've had spell correction for a number of years now, but in the past year, we've actually made it much easier for our users to find the spell corrections because we now offer them as part of the autocomplete. You now get spell corrections before you even do your search. They show up there right underneath the search box. We've also made great strides in how to handle proper nouns and really do complicated spelling corrections. We've also rolled out enhancements to our questions and answers. 2 years ago in 2008, at an event much like this, we rolled out a product called Google Squared, which was a technology demonstration that showed how we could intuit facts from the data on the web. We've taken the technology behind Google Squared and launched it as part of our core web search. So today you can type small questions for facts into Google search and get answers right on the top of the results page, like the inventor of the telephone. It just says Alexander Graham Bell. And it also works for real-time events as well and current events. You can type things like Iron Man 2 release date, and we'll give you the release date right on top of the search results page. And we've also rolled out stars in search. We're constantly working to make Google search more personalized. And through our experiments with products like SearchWiki, what we found was that users really wanted to be able to bookmark results, to say, this URL, I want at the top of this search in the future, and any related search. And I also want a way to be able to get back to it easily. We now have stars in search rolled out on all users who are signed in for all their searches, and with a star accompanying each search result, so it's always easy to bookmark a result and be able to come back to it. And finally, in April, we rolled out our redesign. Our redesign introduced a left-hand navigation panel that has all kinds of dynamic tools that help our users slice and dice their results in entirely new ways, ultimately helping them find what they're looking for all that much faster. We also redid the formatting of the main search results in order to help our users scan and find what they were looking for that much faster. And through all of these improvements, we've also managed to have a little bit of fun. So in January, we had our first television commercial, a Super Bowl commercial no less, featuring search. Let's go ahead and roll the video.
Hello. Bonjour.
Très très mignon. Alors?
Le commandant et toute son équipe espèrent que vous avez passé un agréable
And the fun didn't stop there. We actually renamed ourselves Topeka for April Fools in honor of Topeka, Kansas, which named themselves Google for our Fiber to the Home project. And over the past few days, we've been having fun with our logos. So many of you probably saw yesterday the bubble logo that was on our website. How many people played with it? It's pretty fun. It's almost like a digital Zen garden. It's just very relaxing to see the bubbles sort of explode all over the screen. But we really ran this logo because we want search to be fun, fast, and interactive. And this doodle was designed to tease our announcement today. And then last night, we led with yet another doodle that helped illustrate and give even more of a clue of what we're doing, in that it lit up as you typed into the search box. So this was a little bit of fun to get people in the mood for today's announcement. And today's announcement does represent what we believe is a fundamental shift to search. How people think about search, how people do search, the speed and ease with which people can find information. And as such, and to put today's announcement in perspective, I thought I should offer some insight into the evolution of how people find information. We're here today at the MoMA, The MoMA has an amazing permanent collection, and one of the most important pieces in it is Woman with a Hat by Henry Matisse. Woman with a Hat was painted in 1905. It actually is of Matisse's wife, Amélie. When she posed for the painting, she was actually dressed entirely in black, a black dress and a black hat. And as Matisse painted this painting, a new art movement was born called Fauvism, where the focus is on painterly technique and the use of bright colors, even when bright colors don't appear in the subject. It's a very important piece. It's a very special piece that the MoMA has here on site. But if you wanted to be able to find out all of the information and trivia that I just rattled off about Woman with a Hat, say 75 years ago when the MoMA first opened in 1935, you would have probably had to spend half a day to a day in a library. You would have physically had to have gone to the library. You would have had to find references to the painting. You would have had to stitch together all of these different facts to really understand what was happening with this painting. If you move forward to 1950, things get a little bit faster, mostly because of the prevalence of telephones. With the telephone, you could basically skip the step of actually going to the library. You could call a librarian. You'd still have to verify that you were talking about the right painting and getting the right information. But you could get the information probably in, say, about a half an hour. Fast forward to 1995. Here, personal computers come into play. There were CD-ROM-based encyclopedias. And as long as your encyclopedia had an entry for Woman with a Hat, you could find this information probably in a matter of minutes. But the problem with that is that it was static information. It didn't really tell you, is the piece on display right now? Is it on tour? Where is the piece? This is my favorite piece in the San Francisco MoMA's permanent collection. It's Roy Lichtenstein's Mirror No. 1. And I come here often to see it. And I will say that sometimes it's here and sometimes it's not. And it's really hard to tell when it's going to be here or not. But when you look at search and how it plays out today, this is where the power of the internet really comes into play, because you can have real-time information. So for example, if you search for Lichtenstein Mirror SF MoMA, in the snippets, you can actually see that the mirror is on display in the second floor. And if it's on tour, it notes it on the web page. This is something that's really wonderful, and it actually has taken search time from that half a day to a day that we saw in 1935 to about half a minute. But let's go ahead and take a look at where time is really spent in a search. We know that it takes a user, on average, about 9 seconds to enter their search into Google. After they hit the search button, it comes to us. There's some network time. It spends about 300 milliseconds on our servers on average. Goes back over the network. And then after it renders on their page, they spend about 15 seconds on average picking the right result for them. As you can imagine, because we are so focused on speed, never underestimate fast, we have spent a lot of time optimizing the 300 milliseconds when the search is on our servers, making our algorithms more efficient, making our computers more efficient, really trying to make sure that we have search as fast and as efficient as absolutely possible while it's on our servers. We've also spent some time thinking about network time. This is what our Fiber to the Home project is about, helping people understand how fast their connection could be, how fast it should be, and really pushing on this. Also, we have tools like Google Chrome, which really don't focus on network time, but do focus on rendering time and other overhead in the browser to really try and make people's experience with the internet as fast and clean as possible. But despite all that emphasis on optimizing, you might say, well, a search takes 25 seconds. And all of that focus is really on only one of the 25 seconds. Of course, there's 24 other seconds of typing and thinking that a user really spends. And you might say, well, but is that possible to even optimize that? And in truth, we actually have tried to optimize it. For entering a query, we've added features to our search engine like Autocomplete. So when you're typing a query, popular completions show up right there so you can do less typing and enter your search faster. On selecting a result, we'll do things like the Google redesign to help people scan the page and find information even faster because of the overall layout. But you may realize that at some point, we're really up against the fact that entering a query, there's a physical speed for typing. And in terms of selecting a result, there's a physical speed for thinking. And this is where we really say, can we optimize search even more? Is it possible to make it even faster? And in the past few months at Google, we've had a key insight. We think it is possible. We think it's possible to have a system that provides a user with an easier way to enter a query with a lot of feedback, and that ultimately makes search very, very efficient. And we call that product Google Instant. And that's what we're launching today. So Google Instant actually gets queries and gets your search results as you type, and brings them to you and streams those results right to your computer. So the search is entirely interactive the whole time you're typing. And because it's so interactive, we really do need to show a demo. So I'm going to go over to the demo computer. And I have Dan here who's going to take a picture. We have a picture-in-picture that'll show up here in a second. So you can actually see what I'm typing and what actually happens on screen. So let's go back to the woman with the hat. Let's say we couldn't remember the specific name of this painting. And we just remembered there's an important painting at the SF MoMA. It has a woman in it. How does Google Instant work? Well, the first thing you'll see is that Google Instant, it is and looks like the main search results page, the main home page that you've always been accustomed to. So if I go ahead and start typing my query and type SFM, you'll see I did not hit return. And the results for SFM, and actually for SF MoMA, because that's the predicted query, are already on the page. So with just 3 keystrokes, we actually already have the result for the San Francisco MoMA. If I say, OK, that's great. I've typed SFM. The prediction of SF MoMA is right. I'll go ahead and tab. And then I'll just type woman to try and find the name of the painting. And again, just 6 keystrokes later, we already know that, in fact, the painting is called Femme à Chapeau, Woman with a Hat. So it's just that fast and that interactive. The results with each keystroke, no hitting the search button, no hitting return, the results just stream to you based on the predictions that are most likely given what you've typed so far. So let's go ahead and actually do a lookup on the formal name of the painting, which is in French, Femme à Chapeau. If I type Femme, what you'll see here is that the most likely completion is actually a Picasso painting, woman with crossed arms. But you can also see 5 other searches here right below the search box. And I can do those searches by simply using my up and down arrow keys. So you'll note here, all I do is press down, does that search, women with chocolate. And then you can keep going through the search results, and they just update. So as you scroll up and down the overall recommendations and predictions, you can see the results right there. No more typing. You can explore the whole space of your query, Femme à Chapeau, and all of the related queries. Let's go ahead and take a look at Fauvism. Fauvism is the painting movement that actually came into play with Woman with a Hat. And if we type Fauvism, what you'll see is if I type F-A-U-V, it's already figured out that I'm likely to type Fauvism. So with just 4 characters, I already have a definition of Fauvism, pictures and paintings that show examples of it. And you'll note that a lot of people think Google Instant is search as you type. But it's actually search before you type. We didn't do a search for F-A-U-V. We did a search for Fauvism because that was the most likely completion. So we're actually predicting what query you're likely to do, and we're giving you results for that. We think this ultimately results in a much higher quality experience. But there's even a psychic element of it in that we can actually predict what you're likely to type and bring you those results in real time. And the other cool thing is using the predictions, you can build your query much more easily. So let's go back to the Lichtenstein mirror. If I type Lichtenstein, L-I-C-H-T, Google's already figured out that I'm likely to type Lichtenstein. Doesn't know is it the artist or the country, but I can hit tab, then type M-I for mirror, and again, it's already figured out that I'm likely to type mirror, hit tab, hit SF, and there's the page on the Lichtenstein mirror here at the MoMA. We're really excited about what Google Instant means in terms of search. It means much faster search, an easier way to explore all of the related queries around the query that you're doing, and really providing results in real time before you've even had the opportunity to type your query. We're really ultimately excited about this. Let's go ahead and go back to slides. This is funny. This is something that I don't know if many of you have seen, but in 2000, we actually thought that this idea of being able to search before someone typed was so far out, it was actually our April Fool's Day joke. It was called Mentalplex, and it says, be sure to remove your hat and glasses, look into the circle, think about what you want to search, and present it. And so we thought this was sort of a fun bit of Google history, and obviously dovetails with today, because just 10 years later, what we're seeing is it's actually possible for us to greatly ease the entering of a query, greatly ease the scanning of results, and really speed up the Google search experience. Google Instant is going to be available later today on a variety of browsers. It will be available on Google Chrome, on Firefox, on Safari, and on IE8. And this will all be rolling out over the course of today. So starting today, if you're using one of those browsers, you will be getting Google Instant as part of your core web search experience. We'll be rolling this out as part of our homepage and on google.com in the US. But over the next week, we'll also be rolling this out internationally in the UK, in France, in Italy, in Germany, in Spain, and in Russia for all users who are signed in. So if you're signed in and you're using one of those country sites, you'll also be able to experience Google Instant within the week. We're really excited about what Google Instant could mean in terms of the evolution of search and the future of search, and what it means in terms of how it will change people ultimately searching. In fact, we estimate that Google Instant will help our users save 2 to 5 seconds per query. That may not seem like a lot, but when you add that to the billion searchers and more a week that come to Google, you actually get significant savings. In fact, you actually will be able to save 11 hours for every passing second. We're really, again, we couldn't be more pleased with how this product has developed. And I'm really excited to introduce to you the team that built Google Instant, so they can talk to you about some of the technical challenges and some of the product challenges that came about in building Google Instant and what it ultimately means. With that, I'd like to welcome Othar Hansen and Johanna Wright to the stage.
Imagine if Google were even faster than it was before. If it knew and understood just what you were trying to say before you finished typing. If it could give you feedback as you went along to get you better results. Well, that's what we're here to talk about today. We've been using Google Instant for months, and we want to talk about how it's going to revolutionize the way that we interact, all of us interact with the search engine. This is not a screenshot story. You truly have to experience Google Instant yourself to understand its power. We're going to do the best we can with our demos, but please check out the demo stations on your way out. And today, please use Google as Instant rolls out to our servers. I'm Johanna Wright. I'm the Director of Product Management on Search and working on Google Instant.
And I'm Othar, the engineering lead on Google Instant. Today, we're making Google Search faster and easier than ever before. And Johanna and I are excited to show you the 3 main features that you'll start noticing today.
And you can think of these 3 features like gears in a system. One small change in one gear can have vast leverage over the full system, making your search much more efficient. In Google Instant, the first gear is instant results. The second is our set of predictions. And the third is what we call scroll to search. Let's jump in, and let's start by taking a look at instant results. Immediately when you start typing, results display on the screen instantly. There's no need to finish typing. There's no need to hit enter. I'm actually a little sad that the summer is over. It's hard to believe that Labor Day weekend was just last weekend. And now it's fall. And Othar, we're here in San Francisco. Why don't you use Google to check out the weather?
Sure, this is a great search for Google Instant because with exactly one key press on W, I can get a weather forecast for San Francisco.
Woo!
60 degrees. So my career as a hand model means we can't show my hands, but in slow motion, I'll use one key press. Weather. I did not press the search button or press enter. My fingers never left my hands.
So even in slow motion, Othar was fast. And you can tell that he found out the weather was 60 degrees out. That's right, 60 degrees out by typing in just one keystroke. So now that we've talked about the first gear, instant results, let's move on to the second, predictions. This summer, I, and maybe many of you in this room, read the book, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I don't think Othar read it. He's making fun of me there.
I was a little busy, sorry.
Well, what if we wanted to learn more about this book?
Sure, book titles and movie titles and song lyrics, they're all great searches for Google because people half remember these things, get to a search box, and they do their best. And we do our best with our ranking and other tools to give them the results they need. Google Instant just gives you even more feedback. So to prove my point, I've already forgotten the title, but I have faith in Google Instant, so I'll just start typing The Girl. And there you go. This looks like a book. I scanned down to the results. It's a book that's been made into a movie. Is this the one you had in mind?
It sure is.
That's great. So what you'll notice is the black text says the space GI. Those are the only letters I typed. They're in black text. The rest of the search is in gray text. We call this the prediction. And the way people intuitively focus on the search box while they're typing. So the gray text is a great cue as to what Google thinks you're searching for. And in this case, this looked enough like a book title that it was worth my while to scan down to the results and see if it was, in fact, the book title you had in mind.
So the real power is in tying that gray prediction to the instant results. Google becomes search before you type. And it's as if it knew exactly what Othar was trying to say.
Exactly. It's not quite psychic, but it is very clever.
Our third feature today is what we call scroll to search. And this summer when I was planning my summer vacation, Othar told me about a trip he and his wife had taken to Yosemite.
Oh, yeah.
And this search, Yosemite, actually shows off scroll to search quite nicely.
And it has great sentimental value. First trip my wife and I took. So I'll just start typing Y-O-S-E, and there I get Yosemite. I just learned from Marissa that I can use Tab to complete. And then if I use the arrow keys on my keyboard, I can get to lodging.
Wow,
see a
those
map.
showed up right away, instant
I can get
results.
camping information. And you'll notice that the page is the full results page that you're used to, right? All the results and special features, all the ads, et cetera, all being served to you. And even things like weather. It's warmer but raining in Yosemite, sorry.
Well, thank God we're in San Francisco. So what you saw here is Othar used the down arrow key to scroll through each of the predictions. And as he did that, the results showed up instantly. This is a great way to explore aspects very quickly of things that you're searching for. And we call this third feature scroll to search. Now that we've talked about the three components of Google Instant, our next topic is feedback. The real power is when these three components, instant results, predictions, and scroll to search, come together. This turns Google into a system that gives you feedback as you go along. So one thing that happens to me today is when I'm searching, I'll type something in and I'll hit enter and I'll see if I got the right results. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And if I didn't, I'll just do it again and I'll do it again until finally I get the right answer.
This happens to everyone. It's happened to me. I've recently been planning a trip back home to New York. I want to take my mom and her grandkids to a musical, get them some culture, and me too. Johanna, you seem cultured. Do you have any musicals to recommend on Broadway?
I actually hear that they made a musical out of my favorite movie, The Addams Family.
Okay, that sounded promising until the title, but so let's just search for Addams Family and see what we get. Well, we get an ad for the musical. That's great. But the results seem to be mostly about the TV show and the movies. So I'll just tab and type space M, and now I get the musical. And now I'm feeling like I'm on a roll, so I'll just see if I can get tickets by adding space T. Yes, I can buy tickets for today's performance, if only we could get there in time.
So let's decompose what happened here. Othar typed in Addams Family, And then the instant results gave him feedback that he needed to type more because he was looking for the musical. He wasn't looking for the movie. So he went ahead and added the word musical to his search. Then, since he again was thinking he wanted to buy tickets, in a split second and in his mind's eye, he said, no, I need to change my search. I'll add the word tickets. So now what had previously been 3 searches became 1 search. And this sped Othar up tremendously. So that was our discussion of feedback, and we've done a number of demos. And at this point in our day, you guys might be thinking that the search button is feeling a bit lonely. What the heck is the search button there for anyway at this point? Well, why don't we, what happens actually if we press the search button? Why don't we go ahead and show you? Well, what we do is we give you the same great results we always have. I'll give it away. But why don't we go ahead and do a search for New York?
Sure. So you're right. The search button and the enter key is the cleanest key on my keyboard now. But if I search for New York by typing NY, the best prediction is actually that you want the New York Times. I'm sure someone in the audience is happy to hear that. That's what the odds are. But if I just want NY and I type NY and then either press enter or press the search button once I found my mouse, then we do what we've always done for 12 years. If you type NY and press the search button, we'll search for NY. That's the natural thing to do.
Yeah, so Google works seamlessly as it always has. All it does is it speeds you up. Anna?
Exactly. So whenever you improve a great product, you want to make sure that everyone who's already using the product gets benefit of the new version immediately. Everything they know how to do applies to the new version. I had this experience recently with bicycles. I had this great bike that I ride to work as often as I can, which is not often enough. And I finally got a raise, hint, hint, and bought myself a better bike in the same line, just the better version. I went to the bike store, and they have this little hill you can climb behind the bike store. And so I hopped on this bike. I knew how to use it immediately, the great thing about bikes. And I climbed up the hill. And the only thing that was different is I got to the top of the hill in about half the time because the bike was faster and lighter and more responsive. And that's what we're shooting for with Google Instant. So on that day, I got myself a better bike. And today, we're all getting a better Google.
So if you know how to use Google Search right now, you know how to use Google Instant. It's just like riding a bicycle. Thanks for laughing. OK, so let's do one last demo to bring it all together. This last demo is going to come from another story between Othar and I. So I want to get a dog. Othar has a dog. So I asked Othar to tell me about his dog.
Well, in fact, during this project, we scaled up everything at Google. So I went from 1 dog to 2. But we do have 2 tiny dogs. And they're tiny, but they have a big name, Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. And something like that just is a great search example. I'll meet people in the park, and the little kids will say, Daddy, Daddy, I want a dog just like that. I thought you want a pony. No, I want a dog just like that. And the dad will ask me what's the name, and I'll tell them Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. And I know that an hour later they'll be at home, and they'll have no hope of remembering the exact name. So half-remembered queries are great examples for us. Because let's say they go home and they start typing King Charles. There you go.
Aww.
So with the instant results, you immediately recognize, well, this is a dog, right? The name sounds vaguely like what I'm looking for. And if I scan down or keep searching, I see, oh, it's the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. So that's, in fact, what I was looking for, even though I started searching in, not an exactly correct way. The other great thing about a search like this is ambiguity, right? So dog people call these dogs cavaliers. Now, there are other things in the world called cavaliers, right? Now, we could have a little game here where I ask you to bet which one is the most common, but basically people can't know this, right? So if I start typing cavaliers, it turns out that the basketball team, despite LeBron James, still outranks my dog. And so I realize that I have to keep typing. And if I just type Cavalier space K, the feedback from the instant results and the prediction show me that, OK, now I'm on the dog. So I see the results for the dog. But Johanna, back to your original point that you need a dog. I think you really need to get puppies to match the size of your kids. And if you can, I think you should get the dogs that are the color that mine are, tricolor dogs.
Those are pretty cute.
So if you get 2 and I bring my 2 to work, we can have play dates all the time, never get any work done. That'll be awesome.
So just with all the demos, what happened here is Othar started typing in Cavaliers, and then he got the feedback from the instant results telling him that he had to go ahead and type a little more and add the word king. This gave him the right results. He used the predictions to understand that Google had guessed correctly, and then he went ahead and he used scroll to search to down arrow and see the cute pictures of puppies. So those conclude our demos of what we're launching today, but we also have a sneak preview of something that will be coming out this fall. Do you want to go ahead and show that off?
Yes, so at Google, we normally don't speak in the future tense, but we are working very hard to get this experience to you on mobile. When you're on your phone, first of all, you're on the go, you're probably in a hurry, so Google Instant can help you more. But more importantly, typing on a phone, no matter what kind of phone you have, is just slower. So the feedback from Google Instant is even more useful. So let's start searching for one of these art queries that Marissa was doing. We'll search for Roy Lichtenstein. Now I'm halfway through and I don't know how to spell Lichtenstein, but I assume it starts with an L. And the feedback shows me that I'm getting Roy Lichtenstein, and the image results show me that I've got the artist. So now I can scroll down to check out more information about Roy Lichtenstein. So you can check this out later this fall, and you can also check it out later today at the demo stations outside.
Our group at Google is focused on making search faster and easier for everybody to use. As part of our process, we test all of our features on a number of users and gain feedback and improve the products as we go along. We were lucky enough today that a handful of our testers have been willing to share their thoughts with you all and have given us some testimonials. So let's go ahead and take a look at what they had to say.
As I was typing, things were already showing up.
Oh, wow.
I don't even have to scroll. It's right there.
It's guessing for you.
Oh, look at that. I like that.
It's not an extra clunky add-on. It's just completely integrated in the search experience.
The autocomplete kind of shows up in gray.
I didn't have to press enter.
As you're typing it, it's coming up with the results below, and you can sort of backtrack 3 letters, start retyping, and see the results instantly.
Seeing the results as I was typing really helped because I can scan with my eyes exactly what I want to find.
It helps you kind of pinpoint what to type in to find the answer.
I felt that I was on track to get what I wanted to get quickly.
Took a lot less time to find the answers that I was looking for. It was pretty fabulous. I liked it.
Well, I always try new things, and I appreciate what you folks are doing as far as making it easier for us old guys to work on the computer.
That's great. It's always great to come to work and listen to our users and hear them say things like, oh, wow, that's fabulous. This is going to help me a lot, and when is this launching? Well, the answer is today. Under the hood, obviously, there's a huge amount of engineering work that's gone into this project, and so Ben Gomes is going to join me now to talk about the engineering challenges.
So when we first began to demo this product and this idea around the company, we got several responses. Some people said that we just could not do this. It was just going to be too expensive. Other people said we must not do this because it was going to be too complex a change. But then we showed it to users, and then we showed it to some important people at the company. And they said, we must do it, and we must do it now. So we all came together to figure out how we could make this vision a reality. And the challenges fall into 3 areas. The first challenge is the user interface. How do we create a user interface that's really simple to use and that's familiar to people too? The second challenge is how do we make it work on your computer, on your browser, with your connection? And the third challenge, which is probably the biggest challenge of all, is how do we possibly do this without melting down our data centers? So let me start with the first challenge. How do we come up with a user interface? We started out with this rough idea. We want to give you feedback as you type your query. It seemed that would help you formulate a better query. In fact, somebody at Google had done this demo way back in the midst of time, an engineer named Amit Patel. And what it did was very literally search as you type. So I'm searching for bike helmets. I type in BIKE space H. Now, what do we search for? Bike H. Now, what are the chances are that you were searching for H? It's almost 0. So what happens is that we end up doing a ton of work that's entirely useless with these useless queries. you end up seeing results that are entirely useless to you. So it's a lose-lose proposition. And with no offense to Amit, this was not something that would work. We knew we needed something different. We needed to work with those partial queries.
Exactly. So the best way to make this useful was to take your partial query and complete it to a full search. Thankfully, in the meantime, between ancient history and today, we launched Autocomplete. So Autocomplete filled that role of completing partial searches. Now we just had to build a user interface around this. And as you've already seen in demos, we hit upon this idea pretty early on. We built prototype after prototype and showed them around the company. This idea of showing gray text to indicate the prediction. So you're typing, Google is guessing what you're searching for, and we show that to you as gray text. So that UI seemed to work really well. The next question was, would it be too distracting to show you results as you're typing? And in fact, it was too distracting in early prototypes. Part of it was timing. So we got the timing right and the responsiveness right, so that this felt a lot more seamless. Once we had a prototype that the team was happy with, we went through the process called dog fooding. So we eat our own dog food at Google. I'm always glad that I don't actually work in the dog food industry. And dog fooding was very positive. We had to bring the demos down occasionally for maintenance, and we get people complaining that they had to use regular Google today. It just seemed broken that they didn't get search results as they typed. When is it going to come back up? And that was very gratifying to see. And then we eventually did live experiments with millions of users. And it was very gratifying to see, just like in that video of our trusted testers, that people learn how to use this product very quickly, right? All the things they know about how to search still work. And we saw that in our live experiments. I wanted to point out, by skipping some slides, one of the techniques we use in the lab, we use an eye tracking experiment. We'll invite people into Google, and we'll sit them in front of a computer, and we'll show them that around the monitor are sensors that detect where they're looking on the screen. And we'll show them that there's a red dot that indicates where they're looking. And we'll have them fix their glasses and clean their glasses and whatnot, so that this works. And then we'll give them some tasks or let them do some of their own searches, and we'll watch where they're looking on the screen and how well they interact with the user interface. So I'm going to show a video in a few minutes, but the things to notice are, as people type their search, they are focused on the search box. They focus on the gray text. Sometimes they'll dip down to the autocomplete. And then once the gray text is something that they're interested in, they'll look at the results. In fact, in this video, you'll see that the person has done a couple searches before this. And by the time the gray text is correct, they look at the first result a split second before it arrives, right? So they've been trained to know that it's coming. So let's take a look at the video. So they're searching for parasailing in San Diego. We initially predict San Francisco. The odds are just better of that. But once they get to San Diego, you see that they actually look at the first result before it arrives, right? So search is fast. Google Instant is even faster. So let's take another look at that just so you can see what's going on. So parasailing San Diego is the search. Once the gray text is what they want, they're looking at the first result, right? And then they're going to click on it, obviously. So we saw this time and time again with the over 100 users that we tested in our usability lab. Obviously, some people look at their keys and look up occasionally. That's another important class of people. But for people that actually look at the screen, they are focused on the search box. So we knew we had a user interface that worked. And in retrospect, it seemed like such a simple design. I was reminded of how my dad used to tease me when I told him that I was going to go work at Google and I was going to go work on user interfaces. And he said, well, that's got to be the easiest job in the world. There's a box that you type into and a button that you press. So first of all, which half are you working on? And then he said, well, OK, so your job is basically to make it easier to type into the box and then easier to press the button. And in retrospect, he was both clever and psychic, because with Google Instant, we've made it easier to type in the box by giving you feedback with the gray text and the results. And we've made it easy to press the search button by not making you have to press it as often. I've only pressed it once today and only at Johanna's command.
So the key insight there was the predictive text that showed you the kind of the query you were going to get. So the next problem is, how do we take this experience and make it work for you? Search has so far been a simple HTML page. We are turning it into an AJAX application with all the challenges that entails on different browsers and on different computers. Google has done this before. Google has done this with Maps. Google has done this with Gmail. But now we're doing it with search. And this is not a simple problem. You will notice the fact with these demos, in fact, that the Chrome of the page, the path that stays constant, never refreshes. Only the path, the results that are coming in, refresh. And that's a sign that we've turned this into an AJAX application. But there are many challenges in doing this.
Exactly. So we'll just describe the basic HTTP request flow. I'm sure people will dissect this anyway, so might as well explain how it works. I've always wanted to use this analogy, so let's pretend I'm the client and my boss is the server. So I'm the client, I'm typing in my browser, and I've typed half a query. We send an autocomplete request to the server.
And I send you the search predictions.
Right, the autocomplete predictions come back. This is one of the fastest things our servers do. So they're on the browser being displayed very quickly. Meanwhile,
in the back end, I take the first search prediction and I send it off to the servers to get search results and send it back to the client.
Right, so now I can show the instant results. We saw in the little video that the person anticipated that they'd be there. We show them as fast as we can to the user. In the meantime, lots of things could have happened in the browser, right? We might have clicked on a result from a previous set of results. I might have typed in some unpredictable direction, et cetera. We send other autocomplete requests to the servers, and the servers figure it out amongst themselves whether the search they just finished is still relevant to the user.
And cancel some searches.
Yeah. So that's one optimization we did. We also had to do all kinds of JavaScript optimizations in different browsers. This experience doesn't work if the browser spends more time rendering results than the time between results arriving. So we had to optimize our JavaScript and work around browser performance issues. The other thing we had to do in our JavaScript was actually detect when the experience was broken. You might go from one cafe to another, and the internet speed drops dramatically. So we want to detect that and proactively opt you out of the experience and give you a little error message, giving you a hint as to what's happened. When you go back to the other cafe, it should turn back on. So that's a rough summary of the application.
So now we come to the third part and the hardest and the most interesting part of all of this. How do we possibly do this without melting down our data centers? So think about the problem. We want to give you search results with every letter. An average query is about 20 letters long. So if we give you search results with every character, that's 20 queries for every search you do. So I got this response every time we demoed this initially. Ben, are you crazy? There was no plan in the world where we already serving over billions of queries every day. There's no plan in the world for us to be serving 10 or 20 times that amount of traffic. Like, unless people from other planets suddenly wanted to start using Google, why would we plan for like 20 times, a factor of 20 growth in search traffic? So this was one of the most interesting challenges in getting this down to something practical that we could actually do.
Thankfully, Google has thousands of engineers who love challenges like this, many of them in our search infrastructure group. And they came to us at first skeptical. They would say things like, you're never going to launch this, but I realized last night while running a load test that if you did this and that, you could save 27%. And here's a simulator that shows you how to do it. And then someone else would say, I realized that if you just made this optimization here, you could probably save another 12%. And enough of these skeptical, helpful people come together, you get enough optimizations to get to the finish line. So let's just look at a couple of these optimizations. So the first was realizing that some searches are more important than others. We're more confident, given like a single letter, that in some predictions than in others. So we want to make sure we serve those results to you as fast as possible. And that, by prioritizing searches differently, we can reduce the average cost per search and the number of searches we do. The next optimization is this thing we alluded to before in the client-server aspect, that if the servers can keep track of what the browser either already has or what's already in progress for them on some other server, then we don't have to do needless work. We can reduce the number of searches that way. A final and pretty sophisticated improvement we made was in our caching systems. So caching is always a tension for Google because we want our results to be as fresh as possible as we crawl and index the web, but we also want them to be cached so we can serve them to users as quickly as possible. So this was one of the most sophisticated things we built. There was already a team working on it, and we accelerated that effort tremendously. So we now have very sophisticated caching in all our backends, and many more optimizations to get us to the finish line and be able to launch today.
So I'd like to take a moment to actually thank and acknowledge the team that worked on this. It was a really phenomenal team that came together from across the company. A few of them are here, and I'd like them to stand up, actually. But many of them are in our offices across the country, and in our office in Haifa in Israel that does the Autocomplete. And it started with one engineer a year ago and doubled every 6 weeks, approximately, until the team you see today. I'd like to give them a round of applause, actually. We work on search for many reasons. We work on search because it's an absolutely fascinating problem that goes to the heart of our human curiosity, of our need for information. We also work on search because we're engineers, and the sheer scale of the problem makes it fascinating. There's billions of queries, there's tens and hundreds of billions of documents. We need to get you from your query to the right set of documents in a fraction of a second, and that's just fun. But most importantly, we work on search because we believe it matters to people. It matters to us. Getting people to the information they need quickly and efficiently matters in their lives. It helps them make better decisions. It helps them enrich their lives. From the patient looking to understand his treatment, to the teacher looking for materials to inspire her students, to the journalist looking to investigate a new story, it matters. So we're constantly working to improve search. Just last year alone, we launched over 500 changes to search. Most of them just quietly improved your search experience, from a much bigger and fresher index, to better understanding of documents with synonyms and so on, to real-time results, and hundreds of changes like that. But occasionally, we launch a change that changes the way in which you interact with the search engine, a change like spelling or autocomplete. Today, we are launching the biggest change of that sort in Google Instant. Having used it for a few months, from early prototypes to the version you see today, I feel sure that this is the future direction of search. Not only does it make search faster, that's the obvious benefit, but it makes search much more fun, fluid, and interactive. It enables you to formulate better queries with the results you see as you type. And in doing so, you learn more, and it enriches your life. So search is always on this journey. It's a journey towards the ideal search engine that knows all the information in the world. It knows exactly what you want and can take you from what you want to the best information in the world. Google Instant was a change that touched virtually every part of our serving systems. It was a massive change. But I believe that Google Instant is one of those changes that will seem so obvious in retrospect that you'll wonder how search was ever any other way.
Like Ben and Othar, I'm very optimistic about the future of search, and I'm also very optimistic about our search at the speed of thought, Google Instant. When we look at the future of search, it really moves forward along 3 key axes. One is interactions. How do people search? And when you look at how Google Instant is changing that, how Google Goggles has changed that, how Google Voice Search has changed that, it ultimately really transforms the landscape of search in terms of how people search, how much they search, and what types of things they search for. But this is a big component of what the future of search looks like. Comprehensiveness is the next axis of the future. Being able to bring more and more offline content online, being able to find answers to queries now that we couldn't have found just a year ago or just a month ago. By having more and more results and more content in our index, we're able to really achieve the type of comprehensiveness our users have come to expect. And the final component is understanding. Both understanding our users, like in the case of Google Instant, where we're understanding their intent, or understanding the web at large, like with Google Squared and our question and answer service. We really think that by understanding the web and our users better, that's how we'll achieve quantum leaps forward in search. And obviously, we feel that Google Instant is such a quantum leap forward in search. It has all 3 components of these different pieces of the future of search, all wrapped into one. A different way of interacting, results with every letter. more comprehensiveness. You can actually explore all of the related queries easily with just a keystroke. And also understanding, really understanding our user's intent, being able to predict our user's intent. We really are very proud of what Google Instant represents in terms of a step forward into the future of search. It also represents a large time savings. So you may wonder what these counters were on the walls as we've been presenting. But these counters are counting the hours saved by Google Instant. So during this presentation, Google Instant will have saved 36,000 hours of our users' time. And over the course of a year, we anticipate it will save somewhere on the order of 350 million hours of our users' time. We obviously are very inspired by Google Instant, as was our creative lab. So in closing, they created a video. We gave them the dog food of Google Instant and let their imaginations run wild. And they were inspired by Bob Dylan. In 1965, Bob Dylan gave up the acoustic guitar and took up the electric guitar. And his first song was Subterranean Homesick Blues. It was also his first song to break the top 40. They felt that Google Instant had a lot of the same properties, taking something tried and true and making it even better. We obviously hope that it's as big a hit. And so with that, let's go ahead and see how Bob Dylan inspired our creative lab.
Johnny's in the basement mixing up the medicine. I'm on the pavement thinking about the government. The man in a trench coat, badge out, laid off, says he's got a bad cough, wants to get it paid off. Look out, kid, it's something you did. God knows when, but you're doing it again. You better duck down the alleyway looking for a new friend. The man in a coonskin cap and a pig pen wants $11 bills. You only got 10.
Thanks so much. So as promised, we're going to have a time here for some Q&A. There are going to be some runners here on the sides. You can see them here. They have mics. Just give us one quick second, and we'll get set up. But if you raise your hand, we will try to stare through the light's glare to be able to see you. And then I also just wanted to give a quick reminder that for those of you who are viewing the webcast, you can send an email of your question to us at search2010. That's search2010 at google.com. So why don't we get started right here? Are there really enough seats for us? Okay, that's amazing, fantastic. Go right ahead.
I'm Robert Scoble. When will this be in the browsers, in Google Chrome or whatnot?
This is something that we're working on, so we anticipate sometime over the next few months this will be something that can be activated from the search boxes.
I see Greg here.
Impact on AdWords, a lot of impressions potentially going on by. Are those counted as impressions in terms of ad quality and click-throughs and all of that? A lot of search marketers want to know. Inquiring search marketers want to know.
So there's no change in how we serve or rank our ads. And in terms of counting impressions within AdWords and within other people's mechanisms, what we do is we do our best to understand, well, I guess the way to think of this is that Google Instant changes the way that people search. And so we're doing the best to calculate the way what a search is. So the other addition to impressions is we've added a 3-second pause as an impression.
But the other main cue that something's an impression is someone clicked on a result or clicked on an ad or clicked anywhere else on the page.
Or hits the search button, as always.
And that just stays the same as before.
And it's important to note that because we are operating on a CPC basis, obviously you pay for the clicks, and the clicks are largely preserved despite the change in overall interaction. So basically, while your click-through rate may change, the overall number of clicks accrued to your site is likely to remain very, very constant.
Right.
So historically, you've said about 20% of queries are unique. You've seen them for the first time. How is this going to affect that? Presumably, it'll channel them into the more obvious and common queries instead.
I think that that'll await actual data, because I think some of this will be learning effects, and the product changes the way you search. So I think we'll have better answers on that in a few weeks' time as people get used to the product.
The other thing is if you make search easier and faster, people will search more, and they'll search more. Honestly, they'll give us more difficult problems to solve.
Yes. Can you just wait 1 second for the mic?
Ryan Single from Wired. Could you give me a sense of how this is going to fit in with users' search history, and what of the results are tied to people's web history and search history, and has that changed at all from the current results?
So this operates largely as you'd expect. So in web history, queries where you've done a click will be shown, as they always have been. We also will show you the impressions where you paused for more than 3 seconds, since we're using that as part of our impression count. And personalized search continues to operate the same way, based on the searches you've done and on the results you've clicked on. The inputs into that mechanism remain unchanged.
Hi, Irina from AdAge. It looks like you have a blacklist of words. My last name is actually one of them. It's Slutsky. And there's can you talk about that?
So we,
Have you been Googling yourself while we were here?
Everyone around me is actually Googling me right now.
Yes. Oh, I see.
And as we know, there's my great uncle Eugene Slutsky with the Slutsky equation doesn't come up either.
So we care a lot about child safety and these kinds of issues. And so we had to think a lot about autocomplete and how that works as you're getting the results as you go along. And so we apply the same policies that we actually always have, whereby we filter for both violence, hate, and pornography. And as a result, if you're typing, and apologies on your name, but as a result, if you're typing something that may not be appropriate for certain people to see as you go along, we won't show the results as you go along until you go ahead and press enter.
And obviously this is imperfect, but something we're
We'll look into it afterwards. Thanks a lot for pointing it out.
We have some demos, actually, for those of you who are here afterwards, and we're going to actually troubleshoot for you. Just give us 1 second. Go right ahead.
Oh, just real quick, Glenn Chapman with Agence France Presse. To play off on a little bit more of an expansion on what was asked earlier, how much personal data is needed to make this faster? Like when you press W for weather, it was San Francisco, but if you're in Chicago and you press W, you're going to get Chicago. So how much does the system need to know about the user to make this fast? And then just really nuts and bolts-ish, you said you reached optimization, but how much more pressure does this put on your data centers? I mean, basically, do you have to build new ones? What's going on?
Well, I'll take on the first one. In terms of personal information that's required, it's unchanged. So today on Google Search, for example, we already factor in your IP address location. So just typing weather ultimately would bring you the results for weather in San Francisco or weather in Chicago if you were there. And it's just because when you type weather, when you type W, we're predicting it's weather. We're running that query as if it was weather from a San Francisco IP address. So there's no personal information exchanging there beyond what would already exist on Google today.
The feature's unchanged, it's just cooler, so to speak.
Just give us 1 second. We actually have
Can I take the data center question?
Oh, please, sorry, go right ahead.
So the other thing to know about our data centers is that we're constantly investing in search, and this just is a representation of one of many investments in search. And the cost of search has been growing over time, and this is just totally in line with that growth, and it's what's to be expected with our growth curve. But the thing that you should also note is all of the work that you saw from Ben and Othar about the magic that our engineering team has done to make us use many fewer servers than we would have expected when the inception of the project was done.
So I want to take an online question, and this is for Sergey from Alexis Ibarra from El Mercurio, and the question is, interface strategies seem to be evolving at an astounding rate. Where is this taking us? What are your insights on the future of the machine-human relationship?
I'm embarrassed to admit that a sort of a phrase I was toying with, that we want to make Google the third half of your brain. I just had that came up in conversation the other day. But I am also astounded by the rate of innovation in user interfaces, and I think this has been caused by a whole bunch of factors, and many companies, that are contributing to it, looking at the things that Apple is doing, or even Amazon with a Kindle, or many of the websites out there. I do think it's a little bit of a new dawn in computing, in the sense that things were, I would say, fairly stagnant with respect to the desktop for a decade or so in there, kind of throughout my graduate career and shortly thereafter. And the web was really a big deal for the past 15 years or so. But I'd say over the past several years, based on the capability of both devices, browsers, the technology just coming of age, and I think people being open-minded to trying out new things. You can see lots of different platforms out there, lots of non-traditional ones. There's a lot of exciting work going on. We definitely are proud to contribute some of it, but I think this is just a piece of a really changing landscape in computing. And I think the things that you'll see come out over the next decade from Google and from other companies are going to really change the way that you interact with computing devices.
Another question here. I'm sorry, does anyone have the mic right now? I'm going to take that as no. So you gentleman right here has been waiting very patiently.
Thanks. Ben Parr of Mashable. There's already discussion across the web about instant search's impact on SEO and search optimization. What do you think is the impact on that? Do you think that I guess search engine optimization marketers and the like will have to do or change in order to adapt to instant search?
I think the first point to note is that basically ranking stays the same, right? So people are going to adapt to a new search interface over time, but the fundamental things of ranking stay the same with this change. So in that sense, I don't think there's a big change for search, for people who are trying to adapt their results to the search engine. On the other hand, behavior and the kinds of searches we see may change over time because of the way in which you interact with the search engine may change, the kinds of queries you do and how often you query and so on. So I think that's a longer term effect, and you'll see that much more over time and understand that much better over time.
Go right ahead. Sorry, I can't see so well behind the cameras there.
Hi, Tom Claiborne, Information Week. Given that the web search suggestions are blocked in China, do you anticipate that the Google Instant will eventually be able to be made available throughout the world, or are there certain locales in which that kind of suggestion is going to be problematic?
Our goal is to actually roll this out in as many different platforms, as you can see, mobile, and as many different geographies as possible and as quickly as possible. And at least my understanding is that we should be able to have our predictions running on google.com.hk, the Hong Kong site.
We're going to take one more online question here while we get the mics here sorted. This is from Wired Italy. What do you think are the concrete benefits for an individual user? Do you believe users want faster search?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we talked a lot about the benefits, but it speeds you up, gives you feedback as you go along, it just makes things a lot easier for you. And it takes a lot of the effort out of searching. It helps search before you finish typing.
I think there's also a threshold at which you speed things up and they become just, there's a quantum leap in how much interaction you do with them. Right? That's what happened with word processors, drawing programs, et cetera. So I think people are actually going to be interacting with the search box for the first time.
And I think that what we saw in the dog food was really interesting. We actually have likened Google Instant a lot to, let's say, power steering or power braking. Once you get used to it, it's very hard to go back to the old way of doing things. So when we would have the few times when we had to do maintenance and take our dog food down, we'd have people literally sending emails and begging and saying, like, I don't even know how to search anymore now that I don't have this feedback and have this functionality.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Richard Brandt. I'm the author of Inside Larry and Sergey's Brain. So I'd like to ask Sergey what the third half of your brain is. As we develop technology like this that is just more intuitive and more predictive, there are always questions about privacy and how much we're giving up to Google in order to get all of this technology. Is that something you're concerned about at all?
I think that it's something that privacy is something that we think a lot about as a company, and certainly users place a lot of trust with us. If you look, even starting with probably your most sensitive information is likely in your email, and there are very important information like your email that we really have to store and be great stewards of. So that's something we spend a lot of time thinking about, a lot of time making sure we keep it secure, making sure we have solid policies around it, and I don't think Google Instant is any different in that respect.
Go ahead, Maggie.
Maggie Shields, BBC. Ben, you said that you reckon with Google Instant that behaviour and the kinds of searches that people are going to make may change over time. Can you expand on that? How will behaviour change? How will the kinds of searches change?
Yeah, I think what happens, you find as you use it more, is you begin to explore the area around the topic of your interest, right? Whereas before you may have done one query, hit return and looked at some results. Now you may do multiple queries, right? Because you see that it's very easy to go to the neighboring queries and suggest, like he did with the King Charles Spaniel, or with the musical in New York, right? That you can go and find tickets and you can explore reviews. You can do all those things very quickly because it's such a fluid experience, right? Just in the way when maps became interactive, you could just explore a space. It was no longer like this click and the whole page updates. It was just drag and it updates, right? And so I think that's what's going to happen. People are going to just sort of explore their topic of interest much more than they do today.
Yes, sir.
Cade Metz with the Register. A couple questions. One, during testing, there must have been a certain percentage of users who didn't want this. And can you say how big that percentage was and what their specific complaints were? And two, how does the project relate to the rollout of caffeine? Was it dependent on the rollout? Were they related in any way, or were they completely independent projects?
In terms of the testing, there were some users who ultimately decided to turn off Google Instant, and we actually have a switch that allows you to turn it off next to the search box. Just to the right of it, it says Instant is on. If you click it, it says Instant is off. And so we did have some users who chose to do that, usually for connection speed reasons, and it was a very small percentage. We were overall really happy with the number of people who kept Instant on and really enjoyed that, and I will...
So with respect to caffeine, the two projects not directly tied, but there are two ways in which they are related, in that caffeine makes the index much fresher, so it makes caching strategy a lot more challenging. And so we had to come up with a really great caching strategy that basically updates the cache as you're crawling the web. And that was a part that launches as a part of this project. Other than that, the two projects, and the index is also bigger, and so there's more pressure in terms of the total amount of computation needed. So it's an indirect connection, but there was some.
Let's take two more questions online, two quick ones. One is, how will Google Instant affect paid search? And the other is, does Google Instant mean the end of SEO?
So again, the way that we serve and rank our ads is the same as always. And as Ben said about SEO, I think the ranking of our search results is also the same, and that's not, these things, the user behavior may change over time, but I'm sure our SEOs are smart and can catch up with us.
Let's do one more quick one for Sergey. Sergey, did you ever think, this is coming from Hector Henry in Bogota, Colombia, did you ever think that you would reach this point?
this that you can search as you type single character.
I'm assuming so.
Well, I think it's definitely this is it's pretty amazing the kinds of things that we can do today with benefiting from the Moore's law of computation, the amount of compute power that we have with us. And you guys saw all those optimizations helping us launch this product, but it didn't come down to a factor of one. It wasn't. We did have to spend a lot more compute power on it, and it's really thanks to all the advances in semiconductors and CPUs and so forth that have been coming out, the multi-core processors that really help us do this. So even though philosophically I may have certainly understood that we could, in X years' time, we'll have that much more compute power and we'll be able to do a search for every character for X billion people per day. It's quite another thing to actually see it happen. And so it's very exciting for me to see those hours click by up there. I think it's a tribute to people who work on computing everywhere.
Yes, sir.
So Google has done an extremely good job with actually, helping 99% of the people use the content that is being generated by 1% of the population. And there's always this thing with user-generated content where you want to change that distribution to maybe 95% users with 5% contributing more. So what can Google actually do? Can you play a bigger role in actually making more people contribute more content? Because the place where you have a little bit of weaknesses is where people like Yelp and Quora and stuff, where they're getting more people to contribute content. And with location, you have people recommending stuff, and which is data that Google doesn't have. Can you do more to actually get more people to contribute?
That's a great question. That's been one of our guiding principles for a long time, that in order to do a great job search, we actually need lots of great content out there. Now, one of the things that we developed early on to address that is AdSense, which actually pays for a huge amount of the content that you see across the web and creates that incentive. For more user-generated content, we've worked hard on products like Blogger, which you can see tens of millions or perhaps hundreds of millions. I need to check the stat of blogs out there contributed by all different people around the world, and also content authoring tools, if you look at Google Docs and so forth. But I should mention there are many other great places that people generate content. We certainly don't expect people to generate all their content on Google. That's why the sites that you mentioned, it's great to have those be part of the web community and to be searchable. And also that's why we're really excited to provide the funding for many of those sites via our advertising programs.
Yeah, I just feel that, for example, you could exploit the traffic that you already have to improve local search. Because when I look at a map and I see a bunch of locations, I might have gone to a few of those. Can you incentivize me at that point to add a review quickly right there? Because it would improve a lot more recommendations that you can provide to them.
That's a great question. So specifically with respect to local reviews, I think you can today provide reviews, but it's a little bit buried. But stay tuned for improvements in that area. Thanks.
Let's take one more online from Media Gearhead. I'm glad you guys are sitting down for this one. Are there plans to make this even faster in the future, or do you feel there's a technical limitation at present? Catch your breath, Ben.
We should I think today we're going to enjoy the speed of this as it is. But tomorrow, I'm sure we're going to go back and actually figure out ways to try and make it be even faster. That's what we always do.
I would say it's simply, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Sure.
Hey, Irina from Ad Age. So obviously, I'm interested in the bigger brands that are going to be showing up in the results, because when you type B, you get Best Buy. When you type T, you get Target. When you type, what else, W, we get Walmart. So these are just kind of a natural, promotional traffic thing. So what about, how does that affect smaller brands. And the other thing also is it seems that the lower half of the page doesn't appear to matter anymore, and page 2 almost doesn't matter anymore. So I know we talked about that the rankings are still the same, but it does seem to affect, because I'm not going to go to page 2 anymore, whereas I used to very much when I was interested in very small search that was kind of obscure.
I think one part of it is that I don't think the user intent changes because I typed in W, I got Walmart. If I was interested in Wittgenstein, I'm still going to continue to type in Wittgenstein, right? So it's not that we are changing your user intent. If you're interested in a smaller brand, you'll still type in the name of that. And so we're showing you the thing you're most likely to see.
And if you use page 2 less, I mean, that means that we're getting you your answer much quicker, and you're not having to kind of scroll and wade through a lot more information. I mean, I think the thing to remember here is this is a user-focused launch, which is really the way that our development process is done in search, is that we are totally focused on our users, and we really believe that that's going to be good for advertisers, and we have seen that to be true in the past number of years that we've been working on search. No.
The question was whether the number of ads served will be any less.
No.
No, that isn't what we've seen. I mean, the way that we serve and that we rank ads is totally unchanged. So,
We have a question up top from Richard, it looks like.
Thanks. Yeah, Richard Waters at the Financial Times. Actually, I wanted to pull together a few strands, including that last question. If you expect this to change the way people behave with search and actually conduct more searches, then do you think that actually people will click on more ads? In other words, how will their interaction with advertising change over time? Have you conducted any experiments into that at this point in terms of exactly how often they stop and click and what the frequency of those clicks is?
I think one of our core principles, at least working in search, is think of the user and all else will follow. So in developing this product, we've really been focused on the user experience, and we believe that the other effects will follow if we are satisfying the user need more.
and our ads are a great part of our user experience.
Got one more question there, yeah.
Thank you very much for the very nice features. I think this is really good for mobile cell phones and such. Is that for a mobile market? Is that in the site for the more convenient search for mobile? And my second question is, when will Google release this new search engine features in Japan and China? Because kanji and those characters must be very difficult, but my readers are Japanese, so if you tell, I would be very glad. Thank you very much.
The answer to both questions is sometime over the next few months. So basically, we will be releasing the mobile version. That's why we demonstrated it here. We do think it's a great thing for our users because it's often hard to type on a cell phone or while you're on the go. And in Japan, we do anticipate being able to roll out this feature sometime in the coming months.
Marissa, I got one more question for you online from Alex Chitu. In the past 2 years, Google has constantly changed the user interface for search results pages. Is this part of a bigger plan?
Well, I think we're always learning. I think our users also are changing. We often reflect in search and look at the types of searches people did, say, 8 years ago or 10 years ago versus the types of searches they do today and their expectation around search results, and it's constantly changing. And because the expectations for how good the results should be, how specific the query needs to be, all of those things are constantly in flux. It makes sense that the presentation layer also is.
I also think it is part of a bigger plan. We're always making search better. That's the plan.
That's it? Another question here.
I have a question about the return of the suggestions. It seems to be always 5 in the demo. Can you reduce it, or can you expand it, or it always has to be 5?
Right now, it's 5, and that's the UI that we think works best. But as we've said here, we're always testing and evolving your UI.
So we're going to be available right after this. We're right at 11 o'clock right now, and I think we'd like to start the demo part, but all these folks will be free. Danny, you're in a hurry to get one in. Go for it. We can squeeze you in. Hold on one second, Danny.
The change puts more of an emphasis on the very, very top result. I mean, it seems like even more than we've ever had before. Sometimes those results aren't right, and so how's that going to impact things? I mean, the example I ran was I typed in SEA, I got a suggestion for search engines. The results that come up for search engines, the top thing that you're listing is Dogpile, which is, okay search engine, but Google Instant is supposed to be so great and wonderful. I'd kind of expect to see Google there. So what do you got to do about improving the top results, especially since people are going to see them even more?
Danny, why are you doing a search for a search engine on Google?
Google Instant told me to do it.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Touche.
So speaking of the top result, we did see one very interesting thing in our usability studies. People would actually look at the results that were just visible above the fold, and they would keep typing to pull them up, essentially. So, let's say they saw something on search engine land, right, at the bottom. If they just typed space SE, they hope that search engine land pulls to the top. People actually will learn how to pull things up to the top, even from page 2, to get to Arena's question. And obviously, ranking is a challenge that we work on all the time, so except for that Dogpile question.
And I just want to highlight how important search quality and ranking is to us. Ben pulled up a slide here of all the engineers working on Google Instant, but you can imagine we have a slide just as big and bigger of people devoted to search quality, and they're just really tremendous engineers. As I said, a joy to work with them. And we make about 100 ranking improvements every quarter. So we're very focused on this and really investing in search quality.
I'd make one last point to this. Amit Singhal is sitting right here in the front row. He did a blog post, I think it was earlier this summer, called "This Stuff is Tough." We get this stuff wrong. It happens. Search quality is very difficult. It will continue to be. We'll continue to work on it, but it isn't always perfect, and here we are. So for those of you who want to ask sort of more formal questions, we will be available after this. And as I said, there's demos that we're going to be doing. For those of you who would like to interact maybe a little bit less formally with us, we're going to be having a meetup tonight at 7 p.m. at 111 Minna, where folks will be able to meet the team who invent this magic. So thank you so much for being here. We'll be available after this, and have a great day.